Good afternoon and welcome to the next edition of the Mortal Kombat Franchise Documentary. I'm delighted this evening to be joined by the one and only Angelica Bridges, who played the character Omegis in Mortal Kombat Conquest. And I suppose, first of all, Angelica, your memories of Mortal Kombat, growing up as a child when the first movie came out in 1995, did you have brothers, sisters? You remember playing that computer game on the Atari, Sega Mega Drive, or something like that? Or have you any sort of early childhood memories of Mortal Kombat?
Well, I just remember it being so popular, it was just like one of those things that everybody knew about. It was just, kind of an obsession, at least with the people that I knew and all of my friends. And so when I heard about that they were actually doing, and I was a huge fan of the movie when it came out. So when I heard that they were actually casting for a TV series, I just thought, oh my gosh, this is like my dream role. This is my dream role. If I could just get a role on Mortal Kombat, obviously I want it to be something that fits my personality and something that I can completely rock. But at the same time, it would just be a dream just to have any of the roles. But what I ended up getting was a role that I ended up really loving. So it was good.
And I suppose in that, Angelica, your character Omegis, she was created by the writers and the TV series. She hadn't actually featured in the Mortal Kombat games. But that's because Mortal Kombat, as we know, is based on the character, the great Kung Lao, Kung Lao's grandfather that doesn't appear in the Mortal Kombat game. So it's going back 2 or 3 centuries before that. So they had to invent a cast around the alternative. The 2 characters, Zero and Taja, were invented, and your character Omegis was invented. Like the characters Shang Tsung and Sub-Zero and Scorpion, they're a certain eternity, they can live forever. So in terms of that, you probably came in with the character Omegis, and I suppose it's a new character. No one had sort of a take on it. And what was your aspirations when you saw the drawings, or when you saw what was entailed for Omegis?
I just got so excited because, the character had so many layers. She was what I was actually, when people had asked me, I said, she's got a like split personality. She's got several different personalities. Like, you don't know what you're going to get with her. Like, one minute she can be the sweet seductress, kind of the sex kitten, and then in one instance then she can be so lethal and so deadly and just take you in her fist and kill you with 2 fingers. So I love that about the character. I thought, this is so much fun to play characters that have so many layers and so many dimensions, and you can really have fun with it. You can be evil, you can have fun with it, you can be sexy, smart, intelligent. I mean, that to me, at least coming from Baywatch, where it was just one type of facet of character, getting to play something with so many personalities, it was just, like when I was reading before I even auditioned, just reading what the character breakdown was, I just said, this role was meant for me. I can rock this. I've got this. This is, something that as an actress that you dream about, because it's something you really sink your teeth into. So I loved it. I was super excited. So yes, making a long story short.
Yeah, and I suppose, Angelica, in terms of your chemistry on screen with Bruce Locke, it's almost a sort of Bonnie and Clyde sort of relationship, Omegis and sort of Shang Tsung. They're bad, they're deceitful, but in the same time, you sort of rooting for them all the same.
Absolutely. And I love that she had that history, because you see her as such this, evil temptress. But the history going back, she was innocent at one time. She fell in love with, this character and believed in him and wanted, a future with him. And it's just interesting how you know, it kind of shows how tragedy, or you know, at least how she was written, how the writers wrote her, was how tragedy and heartache, you know, created this woman that turned into this steel, this heart of steel and stone, I guess you could say. So it was quite interesting, but to be able to, you know, have an episode where we flash back and we went to when, you know, they first met and they were in love, and it was like this, you know, innocent, to then fast forwarding to the future, and, you know, such, you know, they just had such, it was just this pull and, you know, of tragedy mixed with, you know, these two people wanting to conquer the world, you know, but in an evil way. So
Yeah, and I
definitely
suppose,
running side.
Angelica, in terms of Mortal Kombat, it's very different in terms of running down a beach, in terms of Baywatch. But one thing that sort of struck me about Mortal Kombat was you coming into that background, you participated in fight scenes and especially the one with sort of Master Chow, with sort of Bruce Lee. Had you any bit of martial arts training, any bit of fight training or stuff like that, even before you got into Mortal Kombat? And if
Oh, I think I lost you. Hopefully you can still hear me. If you can still hear me. Oh, there you are.
I can, yeah, perfect. Perfect.
Okay, yes. So I actually played the role of the only person besides Bridget Nielsen to play Red Sonja on screen. Obviously, Bridget Nielsen did, you know, the film with Arnold Schwarzenegger, but Conan the Barbarian, they did a TV series. So they brought me on to play Red Sonja for that. So before I came on to play Red Sonja, they put me with their sword fighting, you know, the sword fighting like this with the big swords, probably 2 to 3 months before I actually went to shoot that in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. So I think that helped a lot, because I had a bit of gymnastics, you know, base before I started, you know, from childhood, I did gymnastics and tumbling and all that. So then once we started the sword training, which would be in a studio, or he also came to my house and we would do all this in the backyard, which was amazing. I integrated tumbling and a bit of gymnastics with the sword training. So then when I came on to do the Mortal Kombat role, it was great, because I kind of had a bit of that sword fighting, tumbling, you know, experience before I started to do some of those fight scenes. Plus, I had taken a little bit of karate in Hollywood with private lessons as well. So all of those combined really helped me, you know, get a lot of that physicality and the movement and the choreography down, I guess you could say. Yeah, it helped.
And I suppose, Angelica, one thing, I suppose, in terms of characters in Mortal Kombat, we know the likes of Sub-Zero, Reptile, they're in the same costume for the entirety of the sort of show. In terms of your character, Omegis, the amount of wardrobe changes in sort of one episode, you're flashing from a sort of a witch then to a sexy, seductive temptress, revealing all sort of to the naked eye sort of thing, in that sort of temptation. So
leaf, I was wearing a leaf. No, go on. Yes, all the costumes.
So in terms of that sort of thing, in sort of one episode, I imagine you're probably changing each sort of different scene or different set. You're probably 3, 4, 5 times going into wardrobe in terms of that. So and you appeared in a good few episodes of Mortal Kombat Conquest as well. So in terms of that, was it all, each episode was sort of different sort of takes for you?
Yes, you know, but I loved it, because you know, I love having different wardrobes, because like I said, she had different personalities. You know, she was a witch, she was a seductress, she was evil, she was, you know, just falling in love for the first time in one part of the episode. So because she had all of these dimensions going, it suited the fact that I got to be in different wardrobes to bring out the different characters, if you will, just feeling that in essence of what I was wearing. And yes, it definitely, those costumes left very little to the imagination. But you know, when I look back and I can kind of see, you know, and probably as I get older too, and I look back on the costumes, I just love it. It's kind of like when you see Ursula Andress in that
Yeah.
swimsuit on the beach, she can look back and go, oh, I remember when you know, I could fit into such tiny little, I guess I kind of, you know, want to be able to always have that I can look back on and be like, oh wow, you know, I could go on screen in tiny little clothing and be so comfortable. What is that about? So I think it's kind of cool because, you know, as you get older, you appreciate those moments of being able to wear skimpy wardrobe, but at the same time, you know, it was a lot of fun because how they the stuff they brought, I thought was very creative, you know, as well. It wasn't just, oh, skimpy. It was creatively skimpy, you know, it was creative.
I suppose Angelica, Mortal Kombat has a big sort of fan base all over the world. Conquest, as we know, was a big success. It had, well, it was topping the ratings in terms of TV sort of show, in terms of and 22 episodes in one season. I imagine if Netflix was around at the time, we would have got 2 or 3 more sort of seasons in terms of that just came before that. But in terms of the sort of fan base, Mortal Kombat, it seems to going on for 30 years now. The games came out recently, massive successes, millions of copies sold worldwide. So in terms of all the new Mortal Kombat audience, they're all looking back, watching Conquest, all the people that weren't probably born at the time, in terms of the new sort of fan base. So in terms of that, the character sort of lives on in terms of that. So in terms of that, how do you feel always being recognized or your name associated with Mortal Kombat? Because it's like one thing like James Bond, once you're part of the franchise, you're always in there.
I love it. Honestly, when I look back and people ask me, what was your most favorite role, you know, maybe Red Sonja on Conan or the Baywatch, obviously, Mortal Kombat, or I did some TV soap operas, I always say Mortal Kombat. And that is the honest truth. It was amazing to travel to Florida from Los Angeles to Universal Studios, Florida, where we were shooting, and the sound stages and just the amazing you know, backdrops they would use for the sets, and also being able to shoot outside, and the costumes, like I said, it was just so magical, all of it, the character to the costumes to where they were shooting it. It was honestly my favorite role that I've ever played. And I really mean that. And I've always said it. So to me, this was, yeah, I'm just so amazed. I just hope that, you know, they can keep it out there in syndication so that these little millennials and up and newcomers to video games and what Mortal Kombat was, they could see our episodes, and we get a little following, you know, from the youngins as well.
And I suppose, Angelica, your character, Omegis, as we know from the TV series Conquest, she is immortal. So in that terms, she's sort of living on forever. So that obviously opens up doors for producers of the new sort of Mortal Kombat character series, because she hasn't technically been killed off in terms of that. So if a cameo role came about in the new Mortal Kombat 2021 movie in sort of January, and a sort of maybe a flashback sequence reliving sort of Shang Tsung's history with Omegis, would that be something you'd be game for? Would it be a 2 thumbs up from Angelica Bridges?
Heck yeah, are you kidding me? I would be so over the moon. I would love that. That would be a dream come true, honestly. Yeah. And it's so funny because I had seen Larry Kasanoff, who was one of the producers on Conquest. I saw him at our Baywatch 30th anniversary party a year ago, this month, last October. I think it was like October 13th. He came into Santa Monica to art, and I was like, Larry, you know, and just, yeah, maybe I can plant something in Larry's ear. Larry, you know, you gotta revive the show again. So yeah.
I suppose, Angelica, for the last 30 seconds now, I'm just going to pose this sort of question to you. If someone put the character Omegis in the dictionary and they left 2 blank sentences underneath and they asked Angelica Bridges, what would she like those 2 sentences to read? What would they be?
Oh my goodness. Omegis is a immortal. Omegis is an immortal sex kitten badass.
Yes. Omegis is a mortal sex kitten badass.
Immortal. Immortal sex kitten.
Immortal. Badass.
Actress badass. Period.
Yes. On that note, Angelica Bridges, a pleasure talking to you this evening, reliving your role as Omegis in Mortal Kombat Conquest. No doubt the phone will be hopping now when this goes out, and the cameo role will be up about, and you'll be jetting off to Los Angeles to relive your Mortal Kombat days once more. Angelica, an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Fight!